As you may have seen, we have begun our travels through South America, and the first country we arrived in was beautiful Brazil. In this video, we will share with you how you can fit beautiful beaches, lush green forests, sprawling metropolises, mountain hikes, and a visit to one of the world's largest waterfalls into an itinerary of just 2 weeks.
Firstly, we arrived in Rio after a long-haul flight from Paris, and as we mentioned before in our previous video, we were quite apprehensive before arriving there. But after a week of visiting iconic beaches, hiking scenic mountains, seeing world-famous tourist attractions, we realized how unnecessary all the worrying was.
We won't bore you by repeating ourselves, as a lot of information about Rio is on our previous video, but there are a few more things we want to mention that we would have liked to have known before arriving. Do not buy Havaianas flip-flops before you come to Brazil. I was so close to spending 30-35 euro on a pair in Ireland, and they were shit. And when I got to Rio, I found, well, I don't know if you'll think these are nice or not, but they're between $10 and $15, and there are so many different styles and varieties that are all way better than the shit I was going to buy in Ireland. Another tip, even though you can use your bank card everywhere, we found that we were getting charged up to 10% per transaction when we just used the basic bank card. That's until we switched to using our Revolut card, and it was much cheaper, especially when withdrawing money. We weren't getting charged that much at all. So definitely recommend, if you can get your hands on a Revolut card, use this, not this. Switch to Revolut. Another weird one that got us for a few days when we first got here, I was putting in my card, and every machine here asks you if it's debit or credit. Even though this is a debit card, for some reason, and I still don't know why, I have to say that it's a credit card, and then the transaction will go through no problem. Even on your Uber app, when we were setting it up, we were putting in debit card, Revolut number, and it just wasn't working until I said it was a credit card, and then hey presto, it worked. Strange tip, but that's it.
So that's it about Rio. After a hectic week there, we made our way to a paradise island called Ilha Grande.
We disclaimer in this part, we're going to drop a lot of names here, so try to stay with us, and if you can't, then we'll drop all the names of the places in the description box down below.
Firstly, book your Ilha Grande accommodation in Abrãao. This is the main hub on the island, and this is where your ferry will arrive from the mainland. Speaking of the ferry, there are two main ways to get to the island. You can book a transfer on Get Your Guide, the link is down below, but you need to book it a couple of days before, and it will work out a little bit more expensive. We chose to make our way from Rio by ourselves.
At the main bus station in Rio, you can buy your ticket at the Costa Verde counter. We bought it to Conceição de Jacareí, which is the closest mainland port to Abrãao, and from there, ferries head for the island regularly. After 20 minutes on the ferry, which was more like being on a roller coaster than a boat, you get to this beautiful island.
There are no roads or cars on the island, so the only way to get around is to hike through the forest, taking risks that you may encounter some snakes, spiders, and other wildlife.
Any snakes?
Well, we learned that there are 74 species of snakes on this island, and hopefully we won't see any of them because
there's one behind you.
Venomous. No, I don't believe you.
There's one right behind you.
Or book a tour or a boat taxi. Our priority was to go to the stunning Assaia cave. It's really hard to justify the true experience of what it was like inside the cave, but we'll try anyway.
A narrow passage in the cave leads to a 60 centimeter high underground tunnel. This is definitely not for claustrophobic people, as you can see. Inside the tunnel, a seawater well lets the sunshine in, and you can see a beautiful iridescent glow in the water. We didn't bring goggles, but one guy on our tour group asked if we want to see what's underneath the water. If you dive in, you can see lots of fish in the distance, and it really felt like looking into another world when you put your head underneath the water.
I'm cut and bruises and rotten, but it was thick.
Other places on our tour's itinerary were the island's green and blue lagoons. They are famous for always having lots of fish, which makes for a great snorkeling experience. At some places there were a lot of starfish, and people on our tour even spotted a sea turtle, so expect to see a lot of marine life. Unfortunately, we have come to Brazil at the beginning of a rainy season, and even though Rio showed itself in all its sunny glory, the weather on our second and third day was quite cloudy with some showers here and there, so we didn't visit some famous beaches, but they look like this, and this. It was a pity, but we still really enjoyed our time there.
One of the highlights of our time on the island was watching Brazil's first World Cup game against Serbia, which, happily for us and everyone else on the island, they won 2-0, and the atmosphere around the place was great. To get back to Rio is very easy and the transfers can actually be quite cheap. But we were going to a little port town called Paraty, and to get there via a transfer from the island will cost you 240 Brazilian reals. But we managed to get to Paraty for pretty much half the price, and here is how.
From Abrãao, we took the ferry to a mainland port called Angra do Rei for 70 real each. And in hindsight, maybe we should have gone from this town to the island, as you get discount if you buy a return ticket to and from the same port.
Anyway, when we got off the boat, we made our way to the bus stop, not the bus station, as it was way more crowded there, and we got a public bus to Paraty for only 20 Brazilian reals. So by doing that route instead of buying the private transfer, we actually saved about 300 Brazilian reals between us. The only downside to that route was that it took us maybe 2 hours to get to Paraty, longer than it would have if we took a private transfer. But if you have a bit of time and patience and you don't mind a kind of shitty public bus, then it's definitely worth it. We arrived at Paraty and there you can go on some beach tours, but we decided to only stay for one night as we were going to São Paulo the next day. We absolutely loved this little town. It has such a cute old street with local people eating and drinking all kinds of food and drink from a lot of different shops. From Paraty, a nice comfy bus will take you all the way to São Paulo in around 6 hours. Make sure to buy your ticket at least a day in advance, as this route can be quite popular.
São Paulo surprised us. Did you know that it is the biggest city in the southern hemisphere and one of the most populated cities in the world? With that said, getting around on a taxi can take a while because of the traffic. But if you stay in Vila Madalena or Pinheiros, you won't really need to take too many taxis. These two districts are not only the safest in São Paulo, but still don't be walking with your phone in your hand just like in Rio, but also has lots of quirky restaurants, bars, and botecos, which are small cheap corner bars, or as some Brazilians explained to us, it's a bar where you don't have to dress up.
We didn't film much in São Paulo, but we enjoyed our time a lot. We spent some time with friends who showed us the main street called Paulista that becomes a walking street during the day and has lots of museums, galleries, shops and parks that we will explore next time when we come back to Brazil. We also watched football in the company of our new Brazilian friends, who later took us to try the local liquor, and we were lucky to taste some snacks like this tapioca that we wouldn't have known about otherwise.
Local people on our tour in Ilha Grande and also the amazing people we met in São Paulo showed us how nice, friendly and welcoming Brazilian people are. We were so thankful for getting to know the real side of Brazil and its people. I traveled through quite a few Southeast Asian countries and we lived in China for 5 years, and I learned a very bad lesson there, is that you can be easily ripped off and overcharged just because you're a foreigner or not paying attention. But here, it doesn't seem to be the case. We took a metered taxi so many times and not a single taxi driver tried to rip us off. And they even went out of their way to try to help us. And this is usually not the case in a lot of places with big amount of tourists. So we really have only positive things to say about Brazilian people, and we're really grateful for this experience.
For us, we will always associate São Paulo with nice places to eat and drink, great people, and of course, graffiti. The main spot to see the work of some unbelievably talented graffiti artists is a street called Batman Alley. Here, there's a lot of fantastic artwork and references to Batman, of course. Unfortunately, we had to book our plane ticket out of Sao Paulo in advance as prices can rise and we didn't have too much time to stay longer. But after spending just 3 nights in this city, we know we will definitely have to come back to visit someday.
After watching a spectacular sunset on our 2-hour flight, we ended up in a place where 3 countries meet. And this place has something very special, the largest waterfall in the world. But before we talk about it, first brief about one of the countries, Foz do Iguaçu, this small Brazilian city borders, Paraguay.
Before traveling to South America, originally we didn't really plan on going to Paraguay. We knew a few people that had traveled there and didn't really recommend it. And also we read online that there might be some difficulties with a visa getting there. But this particular town just on the other side of the Brazilian border here, called Ciudad del Este, I probably murdered that in Spanish, but it's really easy for Brazilians to cross. They don't even need a stamp, and for us foreigners we can just cross the International Bridge of Friendship get a stamp on either side of the bridge and go into Paraguay for the day or for a couple of hours if you really wanted to.
So we are in Paraguay and we have no idea what to do. We just found some dishes we want to try, Paraguayan food, but the rest like some attractions, nothing really, just see what this city is about and what this country is about, a little bit of culture.
After you cross the bridge, you will be offered lots of flyers with some electronics. Electronics in Brazil are quite expensive, so Brazilians like to come to this little town to shop. This city is just shops, shops and more shops. From unofficial resellers of Apple phones and DJI drones to very official Cartier or Rolex watches. The prices are the same as they would be in Europe though. And that's basically the only thing there is to do here, apart from trying some Paraguayan cuisine.
I like it as well. I think they make similar things in Brazil and they are more fried, like I don't know, looking, and meat inside is more moist, but I like this because it has some herbs as well, so it's not just any empanada, you know.
I'm looking forward to trying the itinerary because I don't think there's a T in this word that I don't like, so.
After all, we got the drink, but there's supposed to be a special straw, that's why it's a little bit impossible to drink.
Overall, it was quite a fun experience. It's easy to get to, and if you need to buy something, you have a big choice, and if you want a change of culture, even for a few hours, you'll get it there. You can also take a bus into Paraguay from the Brazilian side, but the only problem with that is that you're probably going to be the only foreigner on the bus, and the bus might not stop for you to go in and get your stamps. If you go into Paraguay without getting a stamp on your passport and you try to come out and they ask you for your stamp, you might get fined, so just be careful with that. We would recommend getting an Uber to the border, crossing the border, and then just having your free time in Ciudad del Este.
The real reason people come here is to see the largest chain of the waterfalls in the world. The best way to describe it is jaw-dropping.
Iguazu Falls is in Iguazu National Park and lies on the border between Brazil and Argentina. It's a massive park where you'll do a lot of walking, admiring the scenery, and if you're lucky, see some wildlife. Some advice though, bring a raincoat and wear flip-flops, as you will get wet, especially on the Brazilian side.
Good job, we brought these things. €1 in Foz de Iguaçu. Vital investment.
We arrived here at 9 o'clock by Uber, then we went straight away to get our tickets, and it was only €15 per person. I think it's really cheap for what you get. Bus is also included, and there are 3 bus stops. The first one is to go on the 3-kilometer trail to the second stop of the bus, where you can see first glimpse of the waterfalls, which are very nice, but we would advise you to go to the final stop first, because when we got there it wasn't as crowded at the beginning, and the view from there is the most unreal in our opinion. And then just make your way down. But I guess if you want to have food out there, like spend the whole day and stuff like that, so you can do the opposite way because there is a restaurant at the end. But anyway, it was an amazing experience, and I'm really excited to see Argentinian side because they say it's much better, but we were so impressed with the Brazilian side. It was definitely the most beautiful waterfall we've ever seen, and one of the most beautiful natural attractions we went to as well.
If you've come this far, you should also check out the Argentinian side of the falls. Even if you're not planning on travelling in Argentina, you can easily come and go between the two countries. We took an Uber, and when we crossed over into Argentina, we made our way to the waterfall once again. A lot of people told us they preferred the Argentinian side of the falls, but to be honest, we actually much preferred the Brazilian side, as you have a much more dramatic view of the falls and really get a feel for just how massive they are. On the day we went to visit the Argentinian side, it was very hot and very crowded along the paths, so maybe that is swaying our judgment too. Definitely check out both sides of this amazing natural attraction and let us know in the comments which side you preferred.
So we had an absolutely amazing couple of weeks in Brazil, and we enjoyed it a lot. For us, it was the best way to explore Brazil in this amount of time because the country is too massive and you can go to Amazon, Pantanal and everything together. But we found alternative places in other countries, so stick around so you don't miss out on the videos about them.
In Argentina, we found what we think is going to be a hidden gem, so make sure you don't miss that in the next video.
And if you go to Brazil, we are positive you're going to have something to remember, just like us.